Thank you, Aaron. Good evening, friends and alum, students and faculty. My name is Minghan Lee. I'm the School Director of Planning, Design, Construction. Tonight, we'd like to welcome our speaker, Ernest Wong, for giving us his talk. And let me introduce Ernie so that you get to see the accomplishment that he has achieved at the moment. Ernest Wong, founder and principal of SITE, S-I-T-E, has been instrumental in the evolution of the firm as a multicultural, cutting-edge design entity and fostering the landscape architecture profession in the city of Chicago. In managing the firm for over 31 years, SITE has established a reputation for creative design solutions in developing thoughtful, community-oriented urban spaces. An advocate of contextually designed public open spaces and urban parks, Mr. Wong has directed numerous acclaimed projects, including Mary Bartolome Park, Henry Palmisano Park, and Art Gile Shear Street. Recent projects include 75th Street Boardwalk, Pullman National Monument, Mokami Square, Marriott Marquis / Wintrust Arena, the Chicago River Design Guidelines, the Old Chicago Post Office redevelopment, and the Obama Presidential Center. Through professional and service leadership, Mr. Wong has advocate for and helped revitalization effort of numerous urban neighborhoods with a focus on social equity in the public realm. Urban communities in Chicago, Kansas City, Omaha, and Milwaukee have benefited from Mr. Wong's advocacy of equity in design, funding, and implementation of public space. Chicago's Chinatown has evolved through transformative community-oriented projects, including the multi-phased Pin Tom Memorial Park, Wentworth Avenue Streetscape, the Chinatown Vision Plan, the Chinatown Branch Library, and the ongoing Wells and Wentworth Connector. A strong proponent of civic and community engagement, Mr. Wong sits on boards of numerous service organizations and professional juries, including the Dry House Award for Architectural Excellence in Community Design, Chinese American Service League, Near South Planning Board, and as the chair of the Chicago Landmarks Commission. In addition, Mr. Wong is a frequent speaker at universities as well as design, business, and diversity conferences. This year, he will be serving as the keynote speaker for the Florida ASLA Conference, the Oregon ASLA Design Symposium, and a juror for the inaugural AIA Rebecca Feldman's Socially Just Design Award. In 2013, he became a council fellow of the ASLA, the highest honor the organization bestowed on its members. Wow. So please, let's welcome Mr. Wong to give us a speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. That was a very kind introduction, and I truly hope that I can live up to those accolades. I want to give a shout out to all of you who've joined us today. I've seen so many names of people that I've not heard and seen from in 35 some years. It is so good to see you. I hope everybody is doing well, staying safe, and keeping healthy. I want to start today's program. Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to share the screen so we can start my piece here. And but I want to start today's program by wishing everybody a happy new year. The Lunar New Year, celebrated by Asian cultures, acknowledges this year as the year of the ox. Last year, the year of the rat, kind of sucked. So to all of you who understand Chinese, Xin Yan Kuai La. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Dr. Lee. My Chinese is pretty bad. I usually, my favorite saying is "wo bu zhi dao," which means I just don't understand. So I wanted to start, a couple years ago, my staff was trying to get me to participate in a program called pachakacha. This is a Japanese conversation, literally meaning chit chat, and it was started in 2003 by two architects in Tokyo. I was pretty reluctant until I went to see a performance of this 20 slides with 20 seconds per slide. And a young member of my firm from the Guizhou province in southwest China gave an incredible performance. Completely shamed, I committed to doing the next show. So I'm showing that to you now. So if you can imagine now, 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, and you can time me on this, in a room, actually at a bar. So we've all had a few drinks, and this is how this goes. I'm a landscape architect. I discovered this profession midway through college while wandering back and forth from architecture to wilderness survival to the hospitality industry. Actually, I always wanted to be Smokey the Bear, but that never really happened. Watching people in public spaces was way more interesting. I'm also a Chinese American that's still discovering my heritage and culture. In this country, we have a short and controversial history. My parents immigrated to this country in the late 1940s to gain an education, hoping to go back to China and help rebuild the country after World War II. My dad was born in the Haifeng County of Guangdong Province in southern China. His father was a landowner who was assassinated during the early communist movement in China. The village was burned to the ground, and my father at age 7 escaped to Hong Kong with one of his father's bodyguards. This is his mother and his brother, who he didn't see for over 50 years. My mother was born in Hong Kong. Her father was one of Dr. Sun Yat-sen's financiers during the end of the Qing dynasty in China. Her mother was a principal of a girls' school in Guangzhou. By age 6, my mother was an orphan. She made it through her childhood, eventually making it to Duke University's medical school. My parents met in Durham, North Carolina, and got married at the Duke University's chapel. My mom still claims that she only married my dad because he had a car. Then again, being the only two Chinese people in North Carolina in the early 1950s, you probably needed a car to get out. My mom, what a gold digger. My dad came to this country because he had a fellowship to study with Frank Lloyd Wright. He couldn't get his visa out of China that year, so the following year in 1948, he got his visa, was on his way to Taliesin, and stopped in Chicago. He ran into a guy named Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, and he never left. Mies's English and my dad's English were both pretty bad, so they sat around drawing and detailing Mies's projects. That's my dad on the left and Mies van der Rohe on the right at the Farmsworth House while it was under construction. Mies may have been complaining to my dad about Edith, the owner, who was apparently one of those clients. In 1959, my father started his firm, YC Wong and Associates, capitalizing on the acclaim of the award-winning Atrium homes in the Hyde Park neighborhood of Chicago. He followed that up with several other acclaimed projects, earning his fellowship with the AIA, American Institute of Architects, in 1975. His practice made a mark in Chicago housing, never sacrificing quality for cost. So while my mom was working at Michael Reese Hospital and the University of Illinois Chicago Medical School, the kids were growing up in the Kedwood neighborhood in Chicago, trying to figuring out their lives in the 1970s, which was a turbulent time in the United States and in Chicago. Fitting in was always kind of interesting, as we were neither white nor black in this very crazy neighborhood, and I pretty much had to thug it up to keep it real. My brother is a fashion photographer, my older sister is an artist, my younger sister manages jazz artists in New York. My parents were pretty disappointed. When they got together with their Chinese friends, they pretended we weren't their kids. No doctor, no lawyer, no accountant, nor engineer. Their kids weren't really Chinese. My dad was an exacting man. When I began working for him, he would make me draw every brick in the building elevation, English bond, every 6th row with a header course. If my lines weren't straight, or I overshot an intersection, or lines didn't meet, he would tear up the entire sheet and make me redraft the entire elevation. When Robert and I started our practice, we held those principles of accurate and precise work, quality construction specifications, deliberate and careful design standards. When we had the opportunity to design Pingtown Memorial Park 21 years ago, we did our best to uphold those standards and raise the bar of excellence. A week before the park opened, I walked my dad through the park explaining the design. He looked down and he never said a word. He didn't have to say what he thought. He was pissed that I became a landscape architect and was even more appalled that I would attempt to design a Chinese park when I knew nothing about the culture. His disappointment was deafening. He passed away a year later. When I earned my fellowship with the American Society of Landscape Architects in 2014, I refrained from telling my mom the news. When I finally told her weeks later, there was a silence followed by, "What took you so long? Your father received his when he was 45. Why are you so slow?" Maybe it's the Chinese thing. I'll never be good enough. I'll never receive the approval from my parents, and I'll carry that chip on my shoulder for the rest of my life. I'll always be compared to Yakum Lee, now the head of the medical school at the University of California, San Francisco. That's me in the far left looking for some other parents to adopt me. When Denise and I started our family, we would expose our kids to lots of things. Play sports, make music, get to know your cousins, ride the CTA, go to public school, walk in the woods, get some thug friends, eat different foods, sing in a choir. One of the things we obviously forgot to teach them was to act their age. They were really cute when they were kids. I tried not to yell or beat them too much, and I never understood the dynamic with my dad and them. He was so gentle and caring. He never ripped up their drawings or made them peel shrimp till their hands bled. Why didn't they get that tough love that everybody talks about? I never got to the Farmsworth House when my dad was alive. I finally went a year after he passed away. I was blown away by the beauty and the elegance of that design. I was struck by the colors of the leaves and the gentleness of the land. I tried to imagine what Mies and my father were thinking as the structure went up. My kids are adults now. They're certainly not following in another generation of design. One is a mechanical engineer, the other one wants to track serial killers with the FBI. I'm proud of them that they're making their own way through life. Their childhood was not as disruptive as mine, and it certainly wasn't as harsh as what my parents endured. They're much more sensitive to what's at stake now, a very polarized country, climate change, and a quickly changing geopolitical environment. They're smart and their friends are smart. Whether they can save the world is yet to be determined, but they'll still need our help and our support. So I guess I should start by telling them that I love them. I hope I did okay with that. But I want to tell you a little bit more about what I was thinking when I went into landscape architecture. When I was in high school and getting into some trouble, one of my teachers made me sign up for a program called the Student Conservation Association. This is a group that historically has put high school kids and college kids into the national parks and national forests, doing hiking trails, building bridges, that kind of thing, cleaning out invasives. And this really changed my life. I spent the next couple of years in high school in North Cascades National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park. It was this experience that really made an impact on my life. I wanted to become Smokey the Bear, as I mentioned. And so I applied to Michigan State University for their fisheries and wildlife program, one of the best in the country. And while I was doing that, I was made to take a statistics class as some of that core competency. I took a look at statistics and I shook my head. I couldn't believe what I was doing. I didn't understand a bit of this. I didn't understand why I was doing it until somebody explained to me, well, you might be counting fish for the rest of your life. Immediately, I was like, oh my God, I got to find another profession. And landscape architecture came into my life. So this is the program that I ended up getting into for a couple of reasons. One of them was because I knew how to draw from working in my father's office. But secondly, though, I wanted to remain connected to the outdoors. And this was a perfect program for me. While I was in that program, and some of you know this book very well, The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces. And it was so fascinating to me to see William White documenting and creating data on how people interact in these public spaces. I would start to go during my lunches to the First National Bank Plaza while I was working for my dad, take my lunches there and just observe people. And I was so fascinated by that. I decided that this is really what I wanted to do. It wasn't really about the plants, although we knew that we had to learn the plant material. And it really was much more so about the social aspect of landscape architecture that really got me committed. But, you know, to all of you who are going into this program, I think it's really important. The horticulture classes that I took at Michigan State University were so impactful for me. And it was really, you know, it's a difficult class. You have to learn the Latin names. You have to spell everything, no misspellings. You have to understand and be able to locate plant material in the dead of winter. That's the kind of stuff that I thought was really important. What I didn't understand was so important, and I think that all of you should take note of this, is the use of construction documents. Drawing these and preparing construction documents and specifications is so essential to our practice. And this is one of the things that, unfortunately, you know, you're doing a lot of theoretical stuff in school, but this is the stuff that really means a lot once you get into the practice. So if you get that opportunity to continue to study that, this is the stuff that becomes really important. The detailing is just as important, and understanding the materials, the things that you will continue to work with. As you start to understand this, you start to understand construction. In construction, you'll probably get to this later on in your career, but understanding how to deal with not only the contractors and what you can and can't say on a job site, but how to behave and how to make sure that the work that you do, that you put down on paper, is being constructed in the same manner. Our firm now, our firm is 31 years old. We have now 32 members of our firm from all over the world. We're really proud of that. We have folks from Australia, South Africa, pretty much every country from Asia, from South America. We have folks that are from just everywhere. We have actually a full-time employee located in Abu Dhabi right now, who used to be in Tokyo. But these are the ideas that I think have been shared in our firm that has brought us to such a place that we are now because of these different ideas and the people experiencing things at home. Our stats at a glance, it's so exciting to, while we don't go to work anymore, but when we do have our Zoom calls twice a week, 11 languages are spoken. And it's really exciting, and it's really good to know that people have different experiences. We are also really proud. We just hired our first African-American landscape architect, which has been so rare. And I'm just going to mention this, that our schools and programs throughout the United States need to continue to recruit and educate more Black and Brown people into the programs. This is us celebrating the Year of the Pig a couple of years ago. Every other year, we have a big party in Chicago, and we invite all of our clients and developer friends, et cetera, and they have a great time. So I'll talk a little bit about the work that we've done over the past 30 years, starting with the park at Lakeshore East. So this is a development, 27-acre development in the heart of downtown. The original design was actually done by the Office of James Burnett while they were developing the master plan with Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. This is a park that we were hired to make sure that the construction documents were accurate, and actually do the construction documents and make sure the park was built in accordance with the design. This is really an exciting project, and really was one of the projects that maintained itself throughout the entire last recession of 2008. It's a dynamic park. It's a 6-acre park that is centered within this entire development of 5,000 new residences. And it is featured with this wonderful sweeping pathway centered on these series of fountains. And there's always a place for dogs. And you'll start to notice that in a lot of the work that we do. Pingtown Memorial Park is one of those places. It's on the Chicago River in the heart of Chinatown, and nobody knows how to get to it. So it's one of those things that's really exciting. It's developed over the last 20 years into a really incredible destination, not only for the Chinatown community, but all Chicagoans. This actually was the final destination of the TV show, the reality show, The Amazing Race, the 6th season. It was a final destination, and the phone calls that we got of taxi drivers trying to figure out how to get to this park was amazing. It's really a destination point, as I had pointed out. People from all over the city get to this park. I would say that, you know, if it was not done alongside of the Chicago River, I'm not sure how successful it would have been, but it certainly is a benefit and an asset to the Chinatown community that continues to grow in Chicago. Mary Bartlemay Park, 27 acres. That's the same size as Millennium Park in Chicago. We didn't get the $575 million that Millennium Park got to build. We got probably about 12 on a 27-acre park. But this is one of those this is one of those parks that we were really excited to be able to showcase some of the sustainability methods that we had started to practice. Now, a drop of water goes into the city sewer system. This is all recirculated throughout this whole park. From the mound, 30-foot high mound that stretches down to these series of wetland ponds that go down to the fishing pond. If you can imagine what this used to be like, it was a limestone quarry for numerous years until it got filled in, and now it's this environmental park that people continue to enjoy throughout the city of Chicago.
Ernie,
yes.
would you please click on the view and show the full screen?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. Should have known that. There we go. We good? All right. Once you get into this park, you have no idea you're in the city of Chicago. It is one of those fascinating places that it is a sense of discovery. And you get in there and the seasons change, and it is a different place every time you go. So if you're in Chicago, please visit this park. I will tell you, of all the parks that we've done, this is probably one of my favorites. Mary Bartlemay Park, as Ming Han had talked about, used to look like this. And there was a big building that was owned by the University of Illinois. That was their infirmary building that was vacant for numerous years. It was taken down, and for the park district, who wanted to put a park in there as a centerpiece for the West Loop, which was developing at a huge high speed. Google moved into the West Loop. McDonald's moved their headquarters into the West Loop. It is such a booming area within the city of Chicago. They needed a park that wanted to lend itself to the identity of that growing urban space. We presented 3 schemes to the community. The last scheme, which is the one on the right, was the one that won by 1 vote and which was built. We were so excited about this. Again, not a drop of water going into the city's sewer system. It's all detained on site. This is also an experiment for us to deal with playground equipment that had never been done in the United States. This is equipment done by a company called Berliner, obviously out of Germany. But you know how playground manufacturers like to divide up playground equipment between toddlers to 5-year-olds and 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds, and tell people you have to separate these age groups because it's really dangerous if they get together. Well, my thought is they like to sell playground equipment. And we ignored that. We put everything together, and we have found that it is incredible to see parents and grandparents out here and older kids helping younger kids maneuver through this playground equipment. It's really exciting to see this intergenerational play going on. The plazas were exciting. This is a shot that was taken right after the spring of 2020. So while we were all experiencing COVID, people were socially distancing themselves within this park. But this is really truly one of the more exciting parks in the city of Chicago. It has become the icon of this growing neighborhood and continues to be one of the features of people who move to this neighborhood and work in this neighborhood. We've done other applications for the city of Chicago. The State Street Lightscape project, we know nothing about lighting, yet we won this because we had some wonderful ideas on how to start to engage with LEDs. We had hoped that we were going to get a sound system and an app that you could actually select the song that you wanted to play, and the lights would play this music, kind of like the Bellagio, but a little less dynamic. We've done the first shared street in the state of Illinois, the Argyle Streetscape. There are no curbs on this street. So this has been taken away from vehicular, primarily vehicular travel to pedestrian and bicycles. And this has really been kind of incredible to see this in an urban space. Vehiculars are still allowed to do this, but to wander through here, but they do it at a very slow rate. And it's been such a great success that the businesses have grown significantly with this. And so it's been repeated. And so when this new development came along with a new development for the DePaul Blue Demons, as well as the Chicago Sky, the women's NBA team, for an arena here, along with the Marriott Marquis, we did another shared street that kind of fit between them. And it's also become an area, actually during COVID, they were holding exercise classes here. We've done competitions, a few competitions. The River Edge Idea Labs was really incredible. The city doesn't like to call it a competition. They want to say it was a bunch of ideas from world-class architects and landscape architects. So I'm going to read off the folks that were involved with this. There was a group called Sasaki, another group called SWA, Studio Gang Architects, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, Perkins and Will, Carol Ross Barney, who is also the architect that helped with Sasaki on the Chicago River Walk, David Adage, architects out of London, who did the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., James Corner Field Operations, and a small little local firm called Site Design Group. We decided at that time that we were going to go way out of the box. So knowing full well that everybody does these photorealistic renderings, we said, we're going to screw that. Nah, let's do something really far out. And we ended up doing this design and these renderings, which were just completely out of this world. And it was pretty exciting to see that. It was an attention getter, that's for sure. We've done a number of guidelines for the City of Chicago Department of Planning. The Chicago River Edge design guidelines were our last piece, and we're working on two new sets of guidelines now for new corridors with the City of Chicago. We've also done work with getting started and working on a set of guidelines for the state of Iowa, as well as we just finished up another project for the Milwaukee Harbor District up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The River Walk was so successful in Chicago that they hired us Rahm Emanuel's last term with 6 months to go, wanted to design and build an extension of the River Walk and make it a lot more park-like. And so we got hired to do this. Mr. Emanuel, sir, we also realized that you wanted us to build this in the middle of the winter and get it open by May before he left office. It was one of the craziest times I've ever had in terms of understanding what you can do in a short period of time. But this is so successful in alleviating some of the crowding that goes on at the Chicago River. It's also an incredible time to start to see what people are doing with site furnishings and how that starts to impact how we engage with each other. The Pullman National Monument It's the only national monument in the state of Illinois. It was a home of the Pullman rail car. It was also the home of the first African-American union and their labor movement that really started to embrace the thought of labor movements throughout the United States. It had gone under, and these were the buildings that had been abandoned, and there were several fires that accommodated that. But this is such an important place in America's history that President Obama ended up naming it a national monument, and we are on our way to reimagining this monument in its full glory, working with a number of folks, including the National Park Service and folks from all over the country. Which brings us to another project, which is about to get started with their construction, which is the Obama Presidential Center, located in Jackson Park, right by the Museum of Science and Industry. This is a project that has been in the makings for a while. We are the local landscape architects working with Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates. The architects for this is Todd Williams and Billy Sin, who are just really incredible architecture firm out of New York, which has been doing fantastic work. We just renovated the old post office along the Chicago River. This is our design for the riverfront. And we really hope to see this built eventually. And it'll get there, and I think that it's going to be really impactful for the city of Chicago. The Field Museum of Chicago, we did a master plan for them about 6 years ago, and since then we've been implementing our designs for that master plan of taking their mission of natural history outdoors. It used to be just lawn and boxwood hedges, and now we've turned it into this series of native plants and different plant species and themes to engage with their program on the inside. And so this has been, over the last 7 years, has been built. This is what it's looking like now. And it has really changed the face of that museum. We're working with Diller Scafidio Renfro, one of the architects, along with James Cornfield Operations, that did the High Line. They are now doing this project down at the University of Chicago, of which we're the landscape architects for. And along the university, along that entire row of buildings, we're working on all of those projects, including the Keller Center, which is a historic Edward Durrell stone building that had been reconverted into the Booth, not the Booth, the Keller School of Public Policy. We also get into some hospitality. This is the Ace Hotel in Chicago. Ace Hotels are one of those like cool hipster hotel chains. They are doing some really dynamic things throughout the world. Ace hired us to do their rooftop and their landscape at the base of their hotel. We engaged with an artist to develop this dome, which is actually a trampoline. And it is incredible to see the activity that goes on there. Before COVID, and now actually during COVID, a few people get up there and they bounce around, and it's pretty exciting. The Hoxton Hotel, also in the West Loop. I've told you about the West Loop and how that's been developing. It continues to evolve, and the popularity of this new hip place is happening. The rooftops that we're doing are really innovative. We're starting to get a better hang of what people are enjoying in their amenities. In fact, we have a rooftop amenity in one of the new student housing projects in East Lansing. So I got to figure out exactly where that's located. But some of the amenities that you guys are experiencing is pretty, gosh, I wish I was a student again. Well, maybe not. It is pretty exciting what you guys get to enjoy. This is another rooftop that we're learning a lot about structural soils, about how plants survive on these roofs and what that can do to really build the amenities of all of these buildings. Dorchester Artist Lofts is one of those places that started out on the far south side. This is a pretty rough area of town. One of the most acclaimed international artists in the world, Esther Gates, ended up buying this because he wanted to get African-American artists to come down to the neighborhood and study. And so we hired an architect to develop these rundown townhomes and redevelop them into a series of not only houses for visiting artists, but also a performance space, and which has just been a game changer for that part of town. We continue to work on affordable housing projects throughout the city of Chicago. This is a senior housing project also on the south side, which we continue to advocate for. Do not waste good design on anything. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we continue to say is that I don't care whether you're rich or you're poor, you deserve the best design possible. And this is one of the things that we continue to promote. The Space to Grow projects that we're doing are campus parks for the Chicago Public Schools. This is an effort to not only detain stormwater on the site itself, but actually draw stormwater from the adjacent areas, the streets surrounding the play yard itself. And so if you can imagine, this all used to be asphalt, and it's teaching kids about planting, and we're learning how to engage with kids and keep them as stewards of the landscapes that we continue to design. And in doing so, we continue to grow with some of the standards that we're looking at for play. And so it's not just the playground equipment and the materials that we get off the shelf. It's designing stuff that kids can start to build themselves. And so they can start to learn about nature. They can start to engage in places that normally they're either at a video screen, they're on somebody's phone. They start to really engage with nature and get to know our natural world. We do a few fun things. This is Parking Day in 2017. We ended up building a human hamster wheel and put it on the street. And it got pretty exciting. One of the things that I realized, though, is that we needed anybody who decided they wanted to get on there had to sign a waiver of lien saying they weren't going to sue us. But it was pretty funny. It's pretty funny to see how people use that space. Another competition we did was in Winnipeg, in Canada. They were this warming hut competition, and we provided this design and actually won this year, the year that we did it in 2018. What we didn't know was that we actually had to go up there and build it in February. And if you haven't been to Canada in Winnipeg in February, it's pretty darn cold. I know East Lansing is cold. You haven't seen cold yet. Winnipeg is crazy cold on the river, building these things. But you know, the beauty of it was fun. So we're starting to take that a step further. We're trying to figure out how do we start to do dining outside with the COVID pandemic that's affected us all. And we're starting to develop all kinds of ideas and crazy ideas on how to go about doing that. Some of the work that we've done is not built. This is a competition actually for the Discovery Partners Institute, a project that we did with Norman Foster and Partners out of London. This is a project along the Chicago River, actually just right down the river from Pingtown Memorial Park, in a new neighborhood that's developing, the 78, this is going to be instrumental in terms of having Chicago not have all of their tech talent go to the West Coast or the East Coast. We're trying to keep that in the Midwest. We didn't win this competition. Rem Koolhaas out of Amsterdam won the competition, but it was really exciting to be able to work with these world-class architects and develop these ideas. They were really incredibly open to the ideas that came out of landscape architects. You may be familiar with this. If you're familiar with Detroit, the Ford Motor Company is moving into the Michigan Central Station to develop their headquarters. This is our entry that we lost to McKeown Kim and Associates. McKeown is doing a fantastic job on that project, and we're sorry that we didn't get it. But this is some of the stuff that we're developing just in the proposal stage that we are getting to. So, you know, I mean, it starts early and we end up spending some time in doing these proposals, but if we're able to win them, it pays off. But we're learning every day on the best way to engage. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the social enterprise projects that we've been engaged with as I start to wind down my talk here. A couple of years ago, I was invited to meet with a group talking about parks. And this group ended up meeting down in a basement. And there were people that I knew from all of these neighborhoods throughout Chicago that were pretty much community activists. I said, oh, good, okay, this is going to be interesting. It's a lot of socialists that kind of want to figure out what we're going to do with parks. And so their concern was this, that the Chicago Park District, they go off and they spend a lot of time in engaging with large venue events. This is Lollapalooza. And I'm, you know, can well imagine a lot of you folks may have gone to Lollapalooza at some time. And it's incredible the amount of money that the city of Chicago makes from these events. But what it does is it tears up these parks. But the revenue from these big events, and no matter who it is, it's Lollapalooza, it's some of the other concerts that occur in the Chicago parks, they generate enough income, they're supposed to generate enough income to maintain all of the entire park system. Well, that's not really happening. And one of the things that's happening is that they get to the maintenance and the park district still complains, we don't have enough money to maintain the parks. And so I started thinking about some of the issues that we're dealing with of, you know, this is after these events happen and the damage it does. But we also are dealing with other social aspects of homelessness. And we're dealing with this across America. And in every big city there is in America. And so I thought of how do we start to solve a lot of the society's problems with this. And so I thought about developing a brand new currency. So you're saying, maybe that statistics class did rub off with me, because now I'm talking about developing a new currency, a currency that the US government can't tax. And we're going to call it Park Coin. And Park Coin can only do one of two things. It can only buy you affordable housing credits, or it can pay for your utilities bills. Can't pay for food, you can't buy a car, you can't get it even on public transportation. You either are buying affordable housing credits or you're paying your utility bills. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there's a commonality of people who can afford to do things and people who can't afford to do things. But if you go out to the parks and you do maintenance and you pick up litter, or you do plant a garden, or you do something else like that, you get paid in Park Coin. And so if you're rich, hey, who doesn't like Park Coin to pay for your utility bills? Or you can give it away to the homeless guy if you want, and that can help him pay for his affordable housing credits. And so this was an idea that I'm still trying to trot this out to lots of folks across America. I sat in a meeting with the Mayor's Institute of City Design, which is a national kind of effort to teach mayors about design efforts and some of the things they can do. And it was kind of interesting to hear their reactions. They were like, this is pretty cool. How do we get it to work? So we're still trying to figure that out, but eventually we're going to get there. So don't forget about Park Coin. We're going to get there at some point. So some of the things that we're doing in the city of Chicago, the Douglas Park Mini Golf, this is a project that some of our staff at Site Design Group embarked on, teaching high school kids really about landscape architecture, but about construction. And they designed this mini golf course, and then they built it. And that was really exciting to see how they started to get engaged with landscape architecture. Another thing that we're doing, the Overton Climate and Resilience mapping plan was done just on asphalt, painting stuff on asphalt with a bunch of kids to teach them about where water goes within a certain part of the city. And so the dark purple points that you can see on this map on the right are the ones that are areas that get flooded, whereas the other areas do not. And you can start to see how that mapping works and what neighborhoods that affects. And so it's about education. It's about people understanding about where they live and what they can do to help themselves. This is yet another project. I told you about the Student Conservation Association. So I became a board member of the Student Conservation Association. And right before I left, I had them, they got together with Timberland Boots, and they produced this project that we found for them in the city of Chicago, a small little traffic triangle. And we built a park in 6 hours with all these kids. And it was absolutely amazing. And it was right across the street from a police station, which was really, you know, this engagement of kids, youth, and police was really important. So with that, I'm going to wind this down, and I'm going to ask Aaron to show a couple of videos that we did last year while we were all in working from home and being situated in socially distanced places. So these are the things that we started to do. Aaron, should I stop the share or you want to stop it?
I can go ahead and take over here. Thanks.
Okay. This was kind of an exciting project for us. We didn't know what we were getting into. This is a project that really started right after the George Floyd killing and the civil unrest that occurred afterwards. We wanted to do something very constructive for this neighborhood down here in Chatham. And that was really important to us because these are Black-owned businesses that have been hit hard by the COVID-19. And then also the looting that occurred didn't only occur on the north side of Chicago, but also on the south side as well.
The Boardwalk was a collaborative effort. We think of it as 14 outdoor living rooms. There's 14 spaces where you can dine, you can eat, you can recreate, you can lounge.
So the Boardwalk, to be honest, I didn't know how it was going to pan out. It was hard for me to envision. I think it's really nice. I mean, even to be able to sit outside like this is nice. So it's definitely added some ambiance to 75th Street, which is a booming area. Like there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of really established businesses here. So it's nice that people can enjoy what's already here in their own community through the Boardwalk.
75th Street, as you can tell, is a busy street. Lots of cars moving back and forth pretty fast. This slows things down and allows people to spend more time here and therefore spend more money. Ernie had a couple of things that he wanted to make sure happened. He wanted to make sure we were using Black and brown people to actually do the work. He wanted to make sure we were teaching the youth and that they were getting some skills. He wanted them to get paid.
Black-owned contractors teaching some of the residents and the youth here in this neighborhood how to do some basic carpentry skills that they could continue to use for the rest of their lives.
We did an outreach to the community and to the youth to say who wants to participate. That worked out well. The students got paid for their labor. They got new training skills.
He wanted to use the plywood from some of the boarded up establishments.
Some of the plywood that you see here is actually from the Cartier and Rolex stores over on North Michigan Avenue.
The construction method, the construction materials, and the construction detailing were very simple, and that was intentional. We all just put our wheels in motion and said, okay, I can do this, 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 and this, because this was all pro bono. Did we mention that? Nobody was getting paid.
Once the paint started to go on, the flowers started to be put in, everybody has just been excited. We get people walking by all the time telling us just how much it's done for the community and how excited they are to have it.
It's worked really well. We have really nice events in the community that wouldn't happen, especially now with the pandemic if this wasn't here.
Once it got up and running, we were responsible for activating the boardwalk by having 6 wonderful community events.
What typically happens on the south side, the question is, why can't we have things that the north side has? And this community, as well as a number of south side communities, have not been invested in over the years for a variety of reasons. So it's important that we actually see a tangible investment by the city, and it has engaged the community so much that now they are coming up with ideas and working together as a team. We don't give up, we still keep going, and we do have a partner in the city and the community organizations and everybody coming together.
It really addresses some of the inequity, the disinvestment that we've suffered.
This community had the bones to do more. It was important to have this happen here because it was needed. And I think the message that needed to be sent was that they are here and they are open, and that here's another reason for you to come.
So I think it's just a reminder of people in the community, like, hey, you have, a ton of stuff here that you can utilize. And it's nice that that's sort of celebrated in this community in Chatham because there really is so much going on here. And so for that to be highlighted, I think is important for other people and even for the people in the community itself to see that.
All right, we have one more for you. This is the same project, just so you know.
We are going to cut the ribbon on the corner of 75th and Indiana.
This idea was born maybe 12 weeks ago. 12 weeks ago. I was invited into one of those Zoom calls, and there was an architect who had a band of other architects, and they said, we want to make a difference in the south side of Chicago as it reopens. That the small businesses and the restaurants that are here that are trying to open safely had a place to do it. And he said, this team right here can make that happen. And really, that's how this began.
So we're with a group called Reimagining Chicago. We've been partnering with the Department of Planning and the city, basically trying to figure out which are the business corridors in most need throughout the city. The basic idea of everything that we're doing right now is trying to bring outdoor dining opportunities to restaurants that are struggling. What you see here is one of our first prototypes of a dining shelter.
They said they wanted to do something to really give back. They came up with a concept, and it happened really quickly. We met on one Friday, and then following Friday, Ernie came back and he said, here's what we would like to do.
It kind of was inspired by a project I had seen in Montreal a few years ago where they did a boardwalk and they had all kinds of activities. So I was like, hey, we should do this on 75th Street. I came out here and talked to the businesses that first day, right? Everybody was arguing about it. Everybody was like, should we close the streets? Should we do this? Should we do that? And I showed them these pictures and they were like, let's do it. And I was like, all right, let's go. And I said, what color would you like? Took a look at my bag and they were like, that's the color.
And so I went to the mayor's office and I said, we've got these architects. They want to do something extraordinary and they want to do it fast. So the mayor's office really sprung into action and said, okay, here's how we can get this funded. And lo and behold, they had a budget. And here we are 12 weeks later, celebrating the opening of a boardwalk on the south side of Chicago.
We're really excited about what this is going to do for this particular community.
I'm very excited about the boardwalk. Projects like this are so important because it gives everybody an opportunity to come together around something positive. This gives people in this community an opportunity to move up and down 75th Street. We're going to do pop-up shops. There's going to be gaming areas for kids, and I hope folks really come out and enjoy it.
So our hope is that this will be a model for other corridors because it's a quick way to get people energized, to show them that change is possible.
Thank you, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. And I'm always open to answer any questions you might have.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you, Ernie. It was fantastic. For audience, please use the chat box or the Q&A to raise any questions you may have. So, Ernie, during your talk, your acquaintances say hi to you. There's several of them. Professor Paul Nowakko say hi. Your maybe classmate or upperclassman Bob Chipman also say hi.
Oh my goodness.
Kathy Spring, John Birdie also say hi, compliment you on the Winnipeg project in Canada. So we have a production team. And so let me try to see if there are any questions at the moment. So from Bob Chipman, proud work, Ernie. So cool that you shared with all of us. Gave us insight into your firm's value plus ethos.
There's a question from John Burley about the professor. There were a couple. Tony Bauer was really. He was a tough cookie, but it was really interesting because when we got started on the Henry Palmisano project, immediately Tony's the stuff that he was working on and having us do was just absolutely amazing. There were a few others.
Okay. Good, Tony.
I didn't attend a lot of class. I'm going to just be honest. I was pre-COVID, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so here's one more thing. Your passion for social justice is inspiring. Could you speak a bit more about it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We are, this last year has really been instrumental in our in the way particularly the United States is thinking about who they are and their identity. And it has been interesting. I'm old enough to remember the 1968 riots in Chicago during the 1968 Democratic Convention. And when you think about that, 26 years later were the Rodney King riots across America. And then another 26 years, we have the George Floyd killings. And so, 50 years later, we're still talking about the same, they're still talking about the same thing. And now we're starting to become way more aware, and especially because of all of the technology that we all have to see things in real time. And I think that's really important for us to start to understand each other's cultures and each other's interests and et cetera, et cetera. But you know, the problem with that, and I'm going to blame this on social media as well, is that it has the ability to brainwash us all into thinking one way or the other. If we can start to put down our phones, we can start to talk to each other. And I think that's really important. But there has to be a recognition of the injustices that have happened throughout the course of history in America, of Black and brown people and of Asians and you know, other immigrants to this country. And you could say, well, you know, the Irish were immigrants and the Italians were immigrants and the Polish were immigrants. Yes, that is all true. But there's a romanticized history of Chicago, a history of the United States that has been portrayed by white people. And I think that we need to recognize that, and we need to understand what the truth is, which is, you know, quite frankly, Europeans invaded America and took out the indigenous people. And so, you know, when we start to think about that, it all, you know, we need to really do a lot more soul searching. It's not going to come easy, and it's going to be a long-term effect. You know, I do a lot of work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, somebody told me diversity is where you count the people. Inclusion is where the people count. But I will say this, equity is not going to come for a very, very long time. So we've got to all work at it.
Thank you for your work about in this space. For your information, our school just formed a standing committee in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we certainly will learn from the space and also from friends like you. Here comes another questions in the chat, the Q&A. Have you observed a change in the use of open public spaces since the pandemic? Maybe less due to lockdowns or more due to the greater danger of being indoors?
Absolutely. COVID, I think this entire pandemic has really opened the eyes of the general public into, you know, what everybody has taken for granted is the health and welfare of the outdoors on all of our lives. And so this is a time, I think, for especially for landscape architects to stand up and understand and tell the public what we do and how we do it. This is no time to stand back and just say, oh, well, we just, you know, shrub up the stuff that architects do. There is no time for that right now. It is time for us to stand up. It's time for us to take the lead on a lot of the projects that are going on throughout the entire country. You know, I've started a discussion amongst a lot of landscape architects in Illinois, wanting to go to Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg and talk about the impact that landscape architects have on transportation. And it's not just the engineers, it is the work that we do that is going to impact climate change. So, you know, that being said, the way we use public space has really been interesting. I've seen models from the city of Seattle. My friend Sam Asefa, who's the planning director up there, has started to do one-way trails so that people, you know, socially distance themselves from each other. We've seen other things. You know, I think people are becoming much more cognizant of how the importance of public space and how we use it. And so we're going to continue to see that. You've seen all those photographs of big white circles in the grass, you know, 6 feet away, 6 feet apart from each other. And we're going to be living with this for a little while, even after we all get the vaccine.
Thank you. You know, I've heard you talk about Park Coin. It is genius. And you're going to get rich, Ernie. You're going
we did trademark that.
super, super rich if you get that.
Yeah, park lane is one of those things. I really am trying hard to establish that, and use somebody as a model. You know, a city that's going to use that as a model to say, hey, this works. The problem with it is it would be a non-taxable currency. But then I started thinking about, well, could it be more like points in your credit card, right? Same kind of thing. If you generate enough points, you can use those points to pay your utility bills, or use it for. But I think there also, along with that idea, was the whole idea of solving financial problems or fiscal issues of financing outdoor projects. And so I'm advocating for Landscape Architects Act, quite frankly, to get into politics. I think that's really important. I keep on saying we need to stand up. Part of that, though, is understanding where the funding comes from. And so if we can start to say, everybody complains, oh, there's not enough money to build this park. Well, if you attach the park to affordable housing, and then it also solves an equity issue, you can get the funding from the affordable housing, and the affordable housing benefits because they can also pool in the money from the park funding. And so it benefits everybody. And so that kind of thinking, I think, is really important. In terms of politics, though, and landscape architects getting into politics, and by the way, you do have a MSU graduate, Mick Dool, who was one of my former employers down in Birmingham, was the mayor for a while of Bloomfield Hills. And I think that's really important, because if you have done a park, if you have done a public park and you've had to go out to a community and sell this park, you're already a politician. So it's time for you to get out there and do a little bit more.
Thank you. I cannot agree more about politics. And so the message here is not only for us professional. We have many students joining the call, the presentation here. So here is a question. Spring is graduation time of the year. What is your advice to students who are preparing themselves for interview? Of course, during this time, maybe virtual, and those who are still in sophomore year or junior year. What's your advice to them?
So there's a couple things. I've taken a little bit of time during this pandemic of staying at home. Now you don't have to travel to class, right? All you have to do is you have to flip open your computer and log into your class and do all of that. But I'm going to encourage you, while you have all of this extra time now that you don't have to travel, to start doing something that's a little outside of your comfort zone. And I'm going to continue to encourage that. I mean, no matter what it is, which is even trying new foods. I think it's important, because you start to understand that there is a world that is out there that is greater than you are. The stuff that we look at in terms of interviewing, and I think everybody is starting to look at that, is how do you fit in with a particular firm's culture, and how do you, and understanding what they do, I think is really going to be important for you to start doing the research. It's not just about your portfolio, but it's also about you understanding who you're interviewing with, because it is, sometimes it's not about, how good your portfolio is. And then there's also, one of the things I've also seen in a lot of portfolios, it's way too long. I mean, my slideshow here was way too long, quite frankly. But I will tell you, when you compare it down to, a top 10 to 12 projects, and show just your best work, it is important.
Great message. Great. There are two more questions now just pop out in the Q&A. Fantastic program, Ernie. You share some inspiring examples of integrated green practices. What needs to be done to make restorative practices order of business in Chicago and other urban areas, especially in economically challenged, historically neglected neighborhoods?
Great question. And I encourage this in a lot of these. Water is such a resource. I mean, it is incredible. you know, when we start to look at this, look what happened in Texas just a couple weeks ago. I mean, their entire power and grid system went down. People were scrambling to find out how are they going to get drinking water. Same thing that happened in Flint, right? The exact same thing. Water is such a resource. We need to protect it. We need to understand how important that is, not only to our livelihood, but also to, each other. We happen to be really lucky that we live in a region which fresh water is very ample to us and accessible to us. We have to recognize that, and we have to protect it. When we're talking about, integrated, landscapes, and the project that I showed, the school campus parks, that was actually funded by the Metropolitan Water and Reclamation District of Chicago, which cleans our water along with the Chicago Department of Water Management. That was a program that they set up in order to not get the water to drain back into the sewer systems, but to be able to keep that on site. And those are the kinds of things and those kind of partnerships that I think that we have to continue to look for.
Thank you. Here comes another one. Can you talk more about how design could help diverse groups meet and learn from each other?
So, I showed you that project on the 75th Street. I'm going to tell you, I didn't know anybody down there. I didn't know anybody down there. And here's the funny part about it. The reason I went down there and decided to, there were several corridors that the Department of Planning was looking at. One of them was Chinatown, quite frankly. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do Chinatown. I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into, doing that. And I went down to the far south side. And the reason I went down there was for one basic reason. There was Lem's Barbecue House, which I had never had their barbecue ribs, and I was dying. That was on my bucket list. So I was like, I'm going down there for ribs. And then it turned out they had this crazy, incredibly good Caribbean and Afro vegetarian food restaurant down there. And then across the street from that was Brown Sugar Bakery. This is just an incredible place. So I was like, I went down there for the food. and when you start to do that, and I keep on telling this to people, that food is one of those things that really connects us all, right? And I got to know everybody down there because of that. I would go down there, buy ribs, and sit outside and start to meet people. And and I was a strange guy. They'd never, what's this Chinese guy doing down there? And you can't be afraid. You cannot be afraid. You have to get out there and, again, get out of your comfort zone. And that happens everywhere. When I go into some of these smaller, rural towns, and I'm the only Chinese guy in there, I'm going to walk into the bar. I'm going to sit down and have a Pepsi Blue Ribbon with somebody, and talk about our experience and how we're more alike than we are different.
Thank you, Ernie. You are very brutal. Talking about food during this time, it made me feel hungry. And talk about barbecue from Texas. Okay, yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and I can see that when you put yourself in an uncomfortable zone, you actually enjoyed it. And this has been throughout your presentation and throughout your career. When you feel uncomfortable, you really enjoy it. So I'm going to read a few comments here from John Birdie, my 10-year-old son, who is half Chinese, found your story inspiring. He decided to study astrophysics. Thank you, Ernie. You are so great. From Jin Hyang, professor here. From last week, our second-year LA students are doing a tactical urbanism project in my design studio. Your lecture and project must incite them to complete their project successfully. Thank you. From Paul, teaching on online studio is not conducive to really learning LA. So field studies, site visits are always some of those best learning experiences. So here comes a question for you from Kathy Spring. Can you share one or more insight of jewels you've learned in your broad experience as a landscape architect for our students?
Yeah, one of the things actually, one of the things that I keep on telling people is that, you know, we sit down and we draw these beautiful plans. You go out to a site, job site or a project site, and you take a lot of photos of the existing site and how you are going to change it, right? And you sit down and you draw this stuff up and you draw up all these different ideas, et cetera, and the project gets built. The one thing that you should always keep in mind is that people will always use the project differently than what you designed it for. And I'm going to give you this example. I was really skeptical about Millennium Park, quite frankly. I was thinking to myself, when that was being built, I was like, ooh, this is going to be like Disneyland, you know, this is going to be like all these things going on and people are, you know, from one thing to another. One of the things that happened was there is the, what they call the Crown Fountains, and it is these two glass block towers in right across the street from the Art Institute. And they have on it the faces of people in Chicago that are projected from within that show these faces, but it's also a water feature. I remember when I was reviewing that project, the architects would come to us with all of these renderings of the project at nighttime, and it was supposed to be this quiet, contemplative place. Little did they know that it's now turned into the biggest water park in the city of Chicago. And you have to understand that this is one of the things that's going to happen no matter what you do, the best intentions that you have. Please be flexible enough to be able to look at your projects and go with the flow.
That's excellent, excellent advice. I have, you know, Norman Cox, inspiring work done with heart, well done, from a student, Ted Crook. On behalf of the student chapter of ASLA, wow, thank you for taking your time to deliver such an inspiring presentation. It's definitely something to aspire to.
Well, you all are, I will say this, the students that you are bringing forward into this profession, it's really important that you guys continue to stay focused, to make sure that you continue to understand the world that is changing around you, and to be able to not only be flexible but with it. And not all of you are going to become like the best designers, and you're not going to become, but there are so many avenues in landscape architecture and in this profession that is really applicable. And I will tell you this right now, I'm going to give a shout out to Jenna, who is our marketing director, who has a master's degree from landscape architecture from the University of Michigan. And she does just a fantastic job. I couldn't have done this presentation without her. But, you know, she's our marketing director and she understands it. You know, she can project manage if she needed to. We could throw on to any project there is, but she does such a great job at marketing our projects and marketing our firm. The same thing with our finance people. Our director of finance is also a graduate of landscape architecture. So it is, you know, you can pretty much do anything, and you need to understand what your capability is. You're not all going to be designers. Some of you, if you're really organized, it can become really, really great project managers as well. And that doesn't require all of the design skills, but it does require being able to manage people and being able to understand how construction goes, fulfills itself. So.
Thank you, Ernie. As we wrapping up tonight's program, I do want to thank you for giving this wonderful presentation. I'm going to present you a plaque that is well prepared by one of our professors, John Burley, who made this wonderful plaque. And this is going to be shipped directly to you. And so be on the lookout in your mailbox in a few weeks. So thank you so much, Ernie. This says, from Michigan State University, the School of Planning, Design, Construction, Landscape Architecture, the excellence in professional practice And this is presented to Ernest Wong in appreciation of presenting to the school. So thank you so very much. And also want to thank our production team behind the scene, Aaron Clavon and also Bill Boloff, for making sure the technology will work. And so we will make this video available. We'll distribute it to appropriate people who made a request. And so let's wrap up tonight's program. Ernie, are there a few final words?
Thank you so much. This has really been an honor. I have not been a part of the Spartan Nation for 35 years, and it's truly an honor to come back and speak to all of you. And all of you who, my former classmates and all those people, all you folks, thank you so much for remembering me and allowing me to have this honor to present to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ernie, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Good night.